Whoops! Yeah, so in my mind, it'd only been like 3 months since I uploaded last, and then when I check my channel and see it's actually been like a year or so, at least I'm consistent with being inconsistent. Either way, I haven't uploaded in a while, so let's fix that. As I am one to do, I pick a series I like that has something coming up in the near future or distant future if we're talking Persona 6, Kingdom Hearts 4, Bioshock 4, you get the picture. Today, this is no different. I've actually spent the better part of 2 weeks working on and refining the ideas I had in this video, which is about 12 days more than I usually do when it comes time for my annual upload. I am a fan of the game Dead by Daylight, and no, that doesn't sound right. I enjoy playing no, that's a lie. I play Dead by Daylight. I've clocked in just shy of 1,500 hours, starting off on Epic when it was free on there for a while, and then moving over to Steam. And in that 1,500 hours, about 1,400 of them have been playing Survivor, so I am a Survivor main. And I would just ask the killer mains to be patient and wait till the end of the video to call me entitled or whatever, because I swear I've tried to make this as balanced as possible across the board. One thing I am a fan of though, is The Evil Within. It's an IP with so much potential for Dead by Daylight, it basically hands us everything we need for a full-on chapter. And considering the 10-year anniversary is coming up, and the next chapter to be announced is likely going to be another licensed one, why not put my foot in the door on this and talk about the potential of an Evil Within chapter and what it could entail. Now, seeing how the naming conventions for previous licenses have gone, it wouldn't be surprising to see that this chapter would just be called Dead by Daylight The Evil Within, but that's boring. So I'm calling this So the meat and potatoes of the chapter that everyone gets excited for is the new survivor or survivors and the new killer. And I think it's fair to say the moment you say Evil Within chapter for Dead by Daylight, you immediately know who the survivors are going to be and who the killer's going to be. On the surviving team, we have Sebastian Castellanos and Julie Kidman. And this Sebastian is specifically from a time in between Evil Within 1 and 2, after his encounter with Ruvik and his first trip through STEM and dealing with the mental fallout from that, but before Evil Within 2, where he learns about his wife and his daughter Lily and is running low on positive vibes. And much the same for Kidman. This is post-assignment and consequence, and she's in the throes and coming up with the plans on betraying Mobius and helping Sebastian rescue Lily. I also really hope I put a spoiler warning at the beginning of this video. And of course, the killer for this chapter could be no one other than Ruvik. And to be honest, I'm torn on his title. You know how every killer gets the first, the shape, the trapper, the lich? I couldn't think of what the fits Ruvik better. The first of two I could think of was the Architect, just based on the fact that Ruvik built STEM and the environment Sebastian goes through in the first game was all constructed by Ruvik in his headspace. But then there's also the option for the Projection, which I really liked as well, because every encounter with Ruvik in Evil Within 1 was just him projecting himself into the environment, because as you find out at the end of the game, he's just a brain in a jar. Either way, these are the three characters we have for the chapter as a basis, with options for legendary skins like Joseph Oda for Sebastian or Torres for Kidman, and pre-accident Ruvik, which I think looks funny. I think it fits more in line with Henry's milkman look. And full disclosure, I haven't watched Stranger Things, so I just assume Henry is a killer psychic milkman and someone forgot to put their bottles by the front door one morning.
I am the milkman. My milk is delicious.
Each character, as you'd expect, has 3 teachable perks, and Ruvik has his power as well, but I will say I have given zero thought to add-ons for his power, because that's more work than I'm willing to do for something that isn't going to happen. So perks and powers is all you're getting. I do also want to say that again, I tried my hardest to make these perks unique, fun, fitting, and balanced in a way that there is either a pro and a con, or you have to work and do specific things for a payoff. But I'm not good at balancing, and there may be something here that's too OP or something that's a little bit too weak sauce, so I'm open to feedback and suggestions in the comments section. Also, this is where 2 weeks of my life went trying to get these perks to where they are now. I'm just going to quickly read off what these perks do. If you want to pause the screen and read them as you go along, feel free. Sebastian's 3 perks. False Lead. After repairing a generator for a total of 45, 50 and 55% progression, False Lead activates. When entering a locker, a random window on the map emits a loud noise notification. If the killer approaches the source of the sound, they will see illusory scratch marks. This effect is not triggered while exhausted, and False Lead then goes on a 45-second cooldown. False Lead is meant as a reference to the games where you can throw bottles to distract and lure away enemies, but I also realised that there is a perk called Distraction which lets you throw a rock, so I wanted to try and reference that distraction and misinformation a different way. And it does need more polish for sure, because I never settled on how long the fake scratch marks would be around for. I did also try to think of counters for it through something like perk interactions, or maybe even the scratch marks themselves are different somehow, and a keen eye killer can spot them and save some time. Perk 2, Every Last Drop. After being in chase with the killer for a total of 60 seconds, Every Last Drop activates. While active, windows you vault during chase require 1, 2, 3 additional interactions before becoming blocked by the entity. Every Last Drop deactivates once chase has ended, a survivor is put in the dying state, or once a window becomes blocked. It then goes on a 90-second cooldown. This is one perk I like in concept, and I can see that might cause some issues on the killer side of things, and it does still need a lot of work. I'm just not smart enough to get it over the finish line. It's meant to be in line with the games and how Sebastian is always being chased by something, and somehow he finds somewhere or something to help him get away from the big bad. A big counter for this is if a survivor is unaware of how the perk works properly and walks after breaking line of sight, ending the chase early, or even if killers find a way to end chase and then reinitialize it. Because once chase has ended and the perk's activated, it goes on cooldown, so it can't be abused. That and perks like Bamboozle and Crowd Control are just straight hard counters. Perk 3, I'll take it from here. After performing an unhook action, I'll take it from here activates. On the next unhook action, hold the ability button 1 to unhook the survivor. The unhooked survivor gains elusive for 6 seconds. After 3 seconds, you scream, revealing your location. You and the killer can see each other's auras for 3 seconds. This does not stack with perks that hides aura. This perk was actually the foundation for the idea of this chapter. When I was thinking of this perk, Sebastian's face was the first that came to mind because it's 100% in line with his character from the games. Even when he's at his lowest, even if it's at a great risk to himself, he would absolutely pull aggro from a big bad to save someone else and let them get away. Plus, I think it's a good way to introduce an anti-tunnel mechanic that doesn't just remove a hook state or punish the killer, but does increase the survivor's chances of avoiding tunneling without eliminating the possibility entirely for killers who might need that pressure, while also incentivizing the killer to chase the survivor who used the perk. I also think it makes sense that this deactivates during endgame collapse, as this could be incredibly powerful, but I'll leave that for you guys to discuss in the comments. But in the meantime, let's get on with Kidman's perks. Perk 1. High Latency. High Latency activates after completing one generator and spending a total of 60 seconds inside the killer's terror radius without entering chase. The next time a generator is completed or a hex totem is cleansed, the killer's notification is delayed by 5 seconds. High Latency has diminishing returns per player per trial. The first activation allows for 5 seconds, the second activation 3 seconds, the third activation is 1.5, and any activation after that has no effect. High Latency does not activate when only one generator remains. This is the perk I probably had the hardest time balancing and justifying how it works. I feel like it's unique in a way that it doesn't really have another perk in the game at the moment to compare against. It's a misinformation perk like Red Herring, Distraction and Deception, and False Lead for Sebastian, but it's also not. It just delays when the killer would receive the notification that a generator or a totem has been completed or destroyed. How much utility this has is beyond my comprehension. Obviously it means survivors can put distance between themselves and the completed interaction, but how much value it gets depends on how killers react to generators popping. Like, if the generator pops and they don't care for it and they carry on anyway, it's not going to get any value. But if you get those killers who walk towards every gen that pops, you might end up getting value from it, but again, I'm not too sure. It also does have the diminishing effect as well, so if a Swift wants to bring 4 of them, it progressively becomes more and more useless, so again, it can't be abused. Also, it doesn't work on the last gen, which is to prevent whoever finishes that gen from getting good distance to an exit gate. Or if it's in an endgame 1v1 and they decide to finish the gen instead of going for hatch, they can't pop the gen and then immediately get good distance towards the exit gate. Also, the activation cost this is the one where I think I need to like tweak it a little bit more, but it's essentially designed so that the survivor that's using the perk has to actually do objectives, but then also waste time at the same time, like pros and cons, like I said earlier. Perk 2, Field Directive. When in chase with the killer, survivors within the killer's terror radius gain a 5, 6, 7% generator repair speed increase, and this effect persists for 4 seconds after exiting the terror radius. Field Directive, obviously, is immediately compared to Quick Gambit, but I think is a higher risk, higher reward version. And while I do think that the higher repair speed bonus may draw people in, they then have to weigh up against the fact that the bonus is only applied to survivors working on gens inside the killer's terror radius. So while they may get their juicy 7% repair speed bonus, they also have a real chance of the killer dropping chase at any point and driving survivors off that gen. So once again, we come back to pros and cons. Perk 3, Containment Protocol. After performing a safe hook rescue and cleansing a totem, you may apply Containment Protocol to a generator. When the affected generator is damaged by the killer, it immediately loses 5% progress and it becomes blocked and cannot regress for 10, 15, 20 seconds. After activation, Containment Protocol enters a 60-second cooldown period. Only one generator can be affected at a time, and it cannot be applied if Blast Mine is already applied to that generator, and vice versa. Kidman's final perk is essentially what happens if Repressed Alliance and Blast Mine had a baby, and while I do think that being able to tag team it with Blast Mine is hilarious, I don't actually have anything more to add to that point, to be honest. It would be funny, but I said I wouldn't be a dick about this, so no pairing the two. For now. The killer still gets their initial 5% regression for kicking the gen, and the fact that it can't be touched by either side means that when it does unblock, it becomes first come, first serve. The thought I just had off the top of my head as well is after it unblocks, for a short period of time, it regresses at a faster rate, just so it's not completely unfair to killers. But I've said before, and I'll say it again, 100%, I am not smart enough to figure this out by myself. But now finally, we move on to Ruvik, the architect slash the projection slash the projectitect? I'm about to hit you with a lot of text, so again, feel free to pause the video and just read it in your own time. Ruvik's power is called microcosms. Ruvik can place a limited number of active microcosms at any time, anywhere on the map. Microcosms have a clear shimmer that is visible to survivors. They cannot be placed too close to each other, as overlapping placements will replace or cancel prior zones. Microcosms remain active until they are either manually replaced by a Ruvik or are overwritten by a new placement due to the limit being reached. While inside a microcosm, survivors will give off killer instinct pulses, and pallets and windows inside a microcosm will be temporarily blocked. The longer a survivor spends inside a microcosm, the more instability they accrue. Once maximum instability has been reached, the survivor then becomes injured. Ruvik can teleport between active microcosms, just as long as he is not in chase and the destination microcosm is not in a collapse state. There is a short channel time required, and there is a cooldown after each use so it cannot be spammed and abused. Survivors can tell if Ruvik is teleporting to the microcosm near them, as the microcosm itself will start to flicker and shimmer in an unusual way as a visual indication that Ruvik is teleporting to that microcosm specifically. So as I mentioned, microcosms can enter this thing called a collapse state, which is triggered when a survivor uses a Ruvik-specific item to cause a microcosm to collapse. When a microcosm enters a collapse state, Ruvik will get a unique global audio cue. Nothing to tell him specifically which one has collapsed, but just that one is in the state of collapse. So how do survivors trigger a collapse? Well, that's done through an item called a stable field emitter, specifically the portable stable field emitter from Evil Within 2. Field emitters are constructed by finding part A on one part of the map and part B on the other side of the map and spending a few seconds to construct the device. Once a field emitter has been assembled, survivors can make their way to a microcosm and are required to stand still in a 5 to 6 second uninterrupted channel process. Once that is completed, the microcosm will then enter a collapse state, and after a short while, that microcosm will disappear. Microcosms are essentially cylindrical areas that Ruvik can place that serve a similar role to Springtrap's axe with the killer instinct while the survivor's inside, and it's also an anti-loop with the fact that it can block windows and pallets. It's kind of like if Skull Merchant's drones had blood favor. I'm not 100% on the instability effect, as I feel like there's already a lot going on with what these microcosms do to a survivor. But I do feel like Ruvik needs a way to injure survivors directly with his power. Like in the games, inside STEM, he can literally just skin people alive while waving his hand. I think building instability by having Ruvik zone survivors into his setups is a lot more fun and interactive than just dropping a microcosm mid-chase, instantly collapsing it and getting a free hit on a survivor. But I'm gonna say it again, I'm open to feedback. Since the Lich dropped, Behaviors had a habit of giving every new killer some kind of mobility option, and the entitled survivor main in me would love that trend to stop with this killer, but with Ruvik, it kind of makes sense for him to have a mobility option in the form of a teleport, as in the games he has shown to do so quite frequently. Even though teleports are limited to active microcosms, it still offers Ruvik the ability to pressure a large portion, if not all, of a given map. They would just have to decide if they want to spare a few resources to have that set up, or if they want to be able to use their power more for zoning in chase or on loops. And similar to Springtrap again, where you can tell what door he's teleporting to by looking at the panel, survivors who pay attention and see the shimmer and flicker, it will be subtle, but it will let attentive players know Ruvik is teleporting to that microcosm and give them a chance to escape, or at least put a little bit of distance between them. Microcosms are permanent unless manually collapsed by a Ruvik, but unlike when a survivor does it with a field emitter, Ruvik's collapse is instant. And seeing as he only has so many, I'd imagine maybe 4 or 5, he would need to manage them efficiently. And when it comes to the survivors and the field emitters, having the 2 separate parts on different points of the map removes similarities to the Singularity's 3D printers and acts more like Sadako's tapes. Also, being forced to stand still to use the field emitters on a microcosm is a little bit more in line with how the Unknown's Dispel feature works on his clones. So these are mechanics that players will already be familiar with, just smushed together. Onto his perks. Perk 1, Inertia Break. When a survivor performs a fast vault or pallet vault, they suffer 4% hindered for 4 seconds. Inertia Break only triggers on fast vaults and has an internal cooldown of 15 seconds per survivor. And multiple survivors fast vaulting around other survivors does not refresh the duration of an already active Inertia Break. Now, I won't lie, I hate Hindered with a burning passion. Playing as both killer and survivor, nothing hits worse for me than Hindered. And that's why I included a perk that inflicts Hindered. That way, I can't be accused of bias. The numbers can definitely be tweaked and changed, like how long it goes on cooldown for, or how much hindered you are for how long you are. I think for killers, having a perk that is a hard counter, or just a perk that seriously nerfs the effectiveness of something like Lithe, Resilience, or Finesse could go a long way in either ending the chase, or at least closing that gap to get that hit in. Perk 2. Hex, Controlled Escalation. A Hex totem is lit at the start of the trial. While active, skill checks become unstable under pressure. While inside the killer's terror radius, skill checks randomly switch between being either faster, having a delayed audio cue, or having a smaller success zone. The effects cycle rather than stacking infinitely, and the only way to stop the madness is to destroy the Hex totem. So hear me out. What if the impossible skill check Doctor was even more impossible? Because that was literally the entire thought process behind this perk, and I have nothing more to add to how it can be used. Perk 3, Mirror Trace. After hooking a survivor, you may select one generator on the map as a focal point. After a short activation channel, a doppelganger projection appears within a radius around that generator for a limited time. The doppelganger mimics general killer movement and behavior around that generator. During its active period, the killer's aura cannot be read, but the doppelganger's can. The doppelganger does not trigger terror radius effects or killer related perk interactions. It will search lockers and fake kick generators with the added spark effect. After 15 seconds, Mirror Trace goes on cooldown for 60 seconds. So the thought process behind this perk was, if the 2 survivors get misinformation perks, why can't Ruvik? Initially, I had this plan that there was a activation window that the perk had to be used in, but then quickly realized that would essentially give the game away to survivors. Because if a survivor had just been hooked, and then suddenly Ruvik appears on the other side of the map kicking a gen in an unreasonable amount of time, that kind of clues people in that they're using this perk. But if used right, I think it could be quite a good zoning tool as well as misinformation. Killers like Trapper or Hag could use this to funnel survivors towards their traps. Teleport killers like Nurse or Freddy can use it to take survivors off gens without having to waste a charge of Blink or the generator teleport ability Freddy has that I don't know the name of. But either way, it gives the same result. And again, I feel like I need to say this because I know what this community is like. Yes, I am a survivor main, but I did honestly try to balance everything so that there were pros and cons or activation requirements, or at the very least what you got from the perk felt fair with what you had to put in. I may have lent too far one way or the other, but that's why I've been sharing these ideas with you and saying that I would appreciate the feedback in the comments, because I'm just one guy, these are just my ideas, I don't know what I'm doing, I just talk. But this is the part where I open it up to you once again. If you've got cool ideas for perks and powers for any of these characters, or maybe even other characters in the Evil Within franchise that you think could fit the game as well, go nuts. And I am sorry that it's taken another year to upload again. Things have gone on in my real life, but I ain't here to feed you excuses. I will try to be more regular on uploads, but I don't want to make promises I can't keep given my current situation. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you thought down in the comments below, and I'll see you in a year's time. Bye!